Hi, my name is Joel Pereira. Do subscribe to the Books on Toast channel or your data will drop constantly.
Hi everyone, welcome to a short episode on the Books on Toast channel. We have a very special guest with us today, Joel Pereira. Well, why don't you tell our viewers what you do?
I am, again, why would you make me describe myself? You're a terrible host, Anuya.
I am not a terrible host.
We need
I have
to-
no idea what you've done.
I've been a journalist for a while and I am also a TV producer. I used to do a show called On Air with AIB. I was a showrunner for that, which was a news comedy show. And an avid student of politics,
That's correct. Also of cars
of cars.
and bikes and things that
motorcycles.
move. Yeah. What
Yeah.
was that all about?
I'm a polymath, Anuya.
That's someone who knows a lot of math, right?
Yeah.
That's true.
And also who's poly.
Let's get serious. Election season is upon us. You will hear a lot of noise about a lot of different things on every news channel that you turn on. And our attempt at through this episode, what we're trying to do is we're trying to sort of put all that noise, shut down all that noise, and create a little bit of perspective and show you the larger picture of what's really going on in our country. And now is a very important time to learn about this.
Yeah.
And
I think the bigger issue is, and the reason why something like this is kind of important is because there's so much media, right? And everyone assumes you know something.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
so
true.
they're all starting from somewhere based on the assumption that everyone knows what you're talking about. And as it turns out, a lot of people don't. First book that you guys
Yes.
should read is something called India After Gandhi, written by this guy named Ramachandra Guha.
yeah.
Okay, so the weird thing about the way history is taught in India, I don't know if you guys remember school, but it ends in 1947.
Yeah.
That's
Okay.
And
true.
they teach you that same thing for 3 years.
Yeah, so there's freedom struggle, there's colonialism before that, there's little bit of Mughal empire,
Yes,
etc.
the Muslim invaders, etc., etc.,
Muslim
Chola Empire and all of
invaders,
that.
all
But
based
basically
on-
ancient history, nothing that's
Yeah,
contemporary.
and for some reason it just grinds to a halt in 1947.
I agree.
We got independence, huzzah, and let's all go home.
Correct.
But what we are experiencing now has, like, what has happened since 1947 to 2019
After
is
the love story.
after the love story and the breakup is super important, and that's what Ramchandra Guha does, right? It's like it's a 900-page book, but he's a journalist and he's also a cricket commentator simultaneously.
Correct.
So the
Yes,
book
that is
is easy to read, and what the reason why the book is so interesting is because he puts, like, you've heard a lot of these things, the Chinese, the war of Chinese aggression, 1965, the Pakistan-India war, like the emergency or nationalization of banks and so on, the JP movement. These are just words that
Yeah.
you've heard, and he basically, so as you're reading, like, okay, I know a little bit about this, and then he provides the perspective and context to that phrase.
So does
that
he
you've heard.
also like explain the politics of the time, like the,
po-
ruling
yeah,
parties,
yeah,
what was going
yeah.
on?
And no basics. And the good thing is, because this guy is a trained historian, he doesn't editorialize. Okay, he
Oh,
only
lovely.
he states
Presents the facts.
as happened to the best of his research.
Okay.
Okay, so he doesn't offer what might have happened
Opinion,
if, or this was wrong because or whatever. He just presents it as it is.
So it's up till what point?
It's up to, I think, the day it was printed. Almost, I think it was printed in 2008 or 9.
Okay, so up till 10 years
So
ago.
till very recently.
Wow, that's
Basically,
amazing.
it's non-fiction ka suitable boy.
Correct.
That's what it is, right?
Non-fiction
Yeah.
ka suitable boy. So yeah, it's and then, like I said, everything, once you read this book, right, you will be primed to dig deeper into topics if you choose to, but you will also have a decent enough knowledge about what happened. So that's why this book is important. Everyone should read it.
Okay.
What's the next book?
Next book is from older. It's from 1936. It's actually not a book. It's a speech. Okay.
I know
By it's called The Annihilation of Caste, written by Bhimrao Ambedkar, and it was published because he was not allowed to make the speech. Okay, so here's the circumstances. There was this organization that was against casteism in Lahore. They invited him to be the keynote speaker. He sent the speech in advance for it to get printed and whatever.
Right.
And they were like, you can't say this. Because the fulcrum of the book is that the caste system basically is not a part of Hinduism. It is Hinduism. And the way to remove the caste system is to annihilate.
Religion?
To annihilate the caste system is to annihilate religion. Okay, and specifically Hinduism. So it was, I mean, now he would, I don't think he'd be able to do it.
Yeah, isn't
put a
that
book.
funny?
Yeah.
That's
And this was
even
back in
weirder.
1936. And again, essential reading for anyone who tries to, because see, everyone talks about, we have these pithy ideas about vote bank politics
Right.
and reservations and so on
Yes.
and so forth. And the only way we understand them is by how they've been told to us
Yeah.
by people who have vested interest in them. And what the Annihilation of Caste does is it puts the Dalit experience into perspective from a man who pretty much started
The movement.
Dalit and Bahujan activism,
Yeah.
Correct.
right, in India. Who also went on to write the Constitution. So this
Constitution
is
of
not,
India as well, correct.
yeah. So this is not someone who's some sort of firebrand
Yeah.
militant. This was a very educated lawyer. This was, I think, the most influential person in Indian politics. Everyone would says Gandhi or Nehru, but I think it was Ambedkar. So again, a book. It's a very slim book because, and again, very
Because it's a
accessible.
Because it's a speech.
It's
Because
Yeah.
it's a speech and very
Yes.
accessible.
Okay.
Because it's almost conversational, right? It was
Right.
the speech that he was going to make, which he didn't. So again, essential reading to understand
How to get out of this bubble of
yeah.
privilege.
Like it's one of those things that Indian society, I think, would prefer to forget while
Put
still
under the carpet. Yes.
While it's very rampant.
while still propagating it, because
Yeah.
they know it's a shameful. It's like perhaps in America, white and black society, they have this history of slavery and racism, and white people just like to pretend, oh, Obama was president, so black slavery, racism doesn't exist anymore. While on the ground, it really does.
True.
So again, which is why reading this speech and reading this book is very important. Okay, so the next book, if you're reading this in sequence, the next book again it's not a novel or a book in the traditional sense. It's a collection of essays written by Amartya Sen, the Nobel Prize winning economist, and it's called The Argumentative Indian. And basically, it's about Indian society, okay, and why Indian society is the way it is.
Okay.
Okay, so like for instance, again talks about
Indian society ऐसे क्यों है?
yeah, exactly. So it talks about religion, interactions,
Okay,
social
okay.
interactions.
I see.
Like for instance, the interaction between India and China. That was a big part of the book. But the biggest argument of that book is that when India got independence in 1947 and up to very recently, observers from the West or Indian elites have this idea India is like poor and illiterate and we don't deserve democracy, or democracy is perhaps not for us, and we need an authoritarian system, or we need a system where we have a strong leader,
Right.
and like
Who will show
everyone
us
will
the way.
follow. Whereas the fact of the matter is that because India is a confluence culture, right? I mean,
Correct.
we've had influences from everywhere. Indians are primed for democracy. We are ready for pluralism. We are ready for meeting new ideas, new religions, new ways of life or thought or whatever. And it also argues against the idea that there can be a monolithic Indian culture. Again,
Yeah.
which is what the current government is trying to do right now,
Yeah,
right? Where you have this
absolutely.
idea of
Nationalism.
Hinduism,
Yeah.
Hindustan, sorry.
Hindustan.
Where it's like,
Correct.
you're less of an Indian if you don't speak Hindi.
Yeah.
Or, you're
Correct.
less of an Indian if you don't say Bharat Mata Ki Jai.
Or stand up for the
Or
national
stand up
anthem.
for the national anthem. Whereas what this book says is that we've had this long history. Like even in our myth, like the conversation between Krishna and Arjun,
Yeah.
which becomes the Bhagavad Gita and the
Correct.
Upanishads, is basically an argument.
Correct. It's an argument.
Right.
I agree.
And they're two different points of view, and both of them are talking to each other.
Okay.
And this book is basically, that is the I mean, it's very widespread, right? Because it's a collection of essays. He goes all over the place. But that is the central theme, I think. That, that we are inherently democratic,
Okay.
Is
That's
it
good.
accessible? Like, will say
Again,
a beginner be able to read
because Amartya Sen is not, I mean, he is an economist, but there's a clear distinction between his papers that he publishes on economic theory and the books that he writes. Because he's people have described him as an economist with a human face.
it? Okay.
So he puts economy as
Other economics, rupee sign.
yeah, essentially. Yeah, no, and they look at people as labor or
Correct.
capital
Yes,
or whatever,
yes.
and he doesn't look at or
So
resources.
he humanizes the whole.
Yeah,
human resources.
and he humanizes what it takes, because economics is basically human interaction, right?
Yeah.
And that's where he shines.
Okay. Wow.
So again, great book to read, and again very accessible.
Oh,
This
wait.
fourth book is called The Feast of Vultures.
Okay.
It's by a
Great.
journalist,
Sounds hopeful.
very hopeful,
Yes.
Lovely
because it
fairy
implies
tale.
that something is dead.
Yeah.
Who is it by?
And it's by this author named Josy Joseph,
Okay.
who's been a journalist forever. And the reason why this book is important, especially at a time like right now, is because it talks about the confluence of big business, media, and politics.
Which, if you read a little bit also, or are a slightly little bit more aware than regular people, you would know that is what is running the full game of the
Everything.
India,
Yeah.
of the Indian political, economic, social system forever.
That's exactly what
and
this
we
book
are
does.
we are what we consume, right?
Yeah.
And we are consuming, like he had said in the beginning, all these individual news pieces which don't really come together and make sense.
Yeah.
This is the book, guys, right?
We are getting
this
very
is-
sporadic
this is the book.
information.
This is
We
totally
need
it.
the
This is
big
the book.
picture.
And
Yes,
what
tell
this
us.
guy does, what Josy Joseph has done is, he's fearless. Okay, this
Wow.
there is
Wow,
a
that's something.
part in the book where he describes the rise of Jet Airways. And he doesn't allude to, but he claims that Naresh Goel had, so there was this, I forget his name, but an airline named East West Airlines, and it was a rival to Jet Airways. And this is in the early 90s, post-liberalization, when,
Yeah.
Things were looking up.
Privatization,
Privatization
like,
happened,
opening up.
and
Yes,
aviation
correct.
industry was opening up. And East West Airlines was doing really well. And he claims that Naresh Goel had this chap assassinated. Not very close from where we are in Bandra right now, in fact.
Oh, we're in Bandra? What are you talking about?
We don't live here.
We are in Bhopal, guys.
Bhopal,
We live
yeah,
right
yeah,
here
yeah.
in Bandra, come find us.
No!
Bhopal, Bandra.
I'm leaving today and moving to China.
So yeah, so
Was
yeah, out of all the
like
China, I'm going,
India
whatever.
to China.
What do you do?
Costa Rica is a nice place to go. I
Chalega,
heard.
done. Let's do it.
Okay. Then
So yeah, so
he got
basically,
him.
yeah, so and it talks about crony capitalism
Right.
and something called rent seeking. Okay, rent
what's
seeking is a term, it's an economic term where, let's say we three of us run a business separately and we make chairs.
Okay.
And we all become titans in our field, and and then what we do is, when we have enough money, we close the business down for other people. That's
Understood.
basically monopolization of resources and markets. And he talks about crony capitalism, which is how a business can only run if it is close to its political masters, which we are seeing again. And this book was written in 2016. So
it's
very
recent. So it happened after the last election, essentially.
After, yeah.
Oh.
Also, after the entire, the anti-corruption Modi wave and this and that and everything.
Correct.
So yeah, so this book basically explains how corruption undermines democracy, because you could have the entire arm of the state, like the bureaucracy, plus your elected representative who's supposed to represent your interests, just available to the highest bidder,
Got it.
essentially.
Yeah.
Cool.
Again, very important book to read. And it'll piss you off more than anything else.
Last
book, again, this is a kind of like a callback to the Ambedkar book that I talked about. So Ambedkar wrote Annihilation of Caste in 1936. There's this professor named Anand Teltumbe. He's former CEO of Petronet. He's an IMA graduate, professor of big data analysis in Goa University,
I am intrigued.
and also evidently, according to the government, a Naxalite.
because of all these other. Okay,
so he's not. So basically, he's one of the premier Dalit and Bahujan voices, civil rights activist. Was picked up 6 months ago in the sweep that happened, right? When the government arrested all those
urban Naxals.
Urban Naxals, yeah. And he was also an urban Naxal according to the government, but he's not. Like I said, that's his profile. Like he was a CEO of a PSU. Like a Petronet is
so
basically
currently he's in the jail.
No, he's out.
He's out.
He's out. And he wrote a book again in 2016 or 2017. No, 2018, like last year, called The Republic of Caste, where Ambedkar's was about Hinduism.
Yeah.
His book is about culture.
Okay.
Okay. And putting everything through the prism of caste. Because his argument is that is what Indian society is. And his not even specific to like the Hindu faith per se. He goes after everyone. He goes after the left for ignoring caste completely and concentrating on class, which is a very Russian thing to do. He goes after the right wing, the Hindu right wing, the BJP, the RSS, etc. for trying to saffronize and normalize the caste system. He goes after the Congress party for just being ignorant and lazy. And he goes after like this is something I don't necessarily agree with in his book because I believe in restorative or reparative justice. But he even argues against the caste system. Because he says, okay, in 1936, 1948, 1950, when the constitution was made, great, but we've made caste a token, right? And he analyzes the reservation system and he talks about how casteism cannot be removed unless all these things are removed as well.
I agree.
And again,
wait, so he argues against reservations.
He argues against the way reservations are done right now.
Yeah.
Where it's tokenism,
got it,
where it's not inclusive.
Got it.
That is his argument, but that is just one of his many arguments.
Got it.
Right? It's a provocative book,
okay,
which I think everyone should read again, and puts the entire election process, the way like if you are not upper caste, upper class, mostly man in this country, how your life is not great.
Correct. If you don't have privilege, what it's really
what
like.
it's really like.
Okay.
Which everybody with privilege should read.
That's brilliant.
Definitely.
That's
should
brilliant.
Read. Republic of Caste, Anand Teltumbe.
Okay.
Teltumbe.
Wow.
Okay.
Well,
Wow.
these
That's
have
amazing.
been like some really superb recommendations.
Yes, and
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Joel,
Thank you.
Joel,
Thank
for
you for
knowing your
having
shit.
Yeah, knowing.
I do know some shit. I don't know all the shit, but I know some.
So I think
Good
a
shit.
lot of you will also be first-time voters, and we keep peddling this number. I think in many corporate meetings all over the country that we are the youngest we've ever been, and I think there are a lot of first-time voters, and also I think a lot of us who for just lack of access or just getting paperwork, we will not get our election cards in time. I think we should really fight for our right to vote, and if we have the right, we should be able to exercise it. Even if you want to go and press that nota button, go do it, because you have the chance to make history here, no matter which way you look at it. So keep your biases away, read as much as you can. These are great recommendations, and just go do your thing, man. Press that button.
Thank you very much, Joel, for
Thank
coming
you for having
and recommending these superb books. They really the recommendations have widened our TBR. Our
TBR?
Tabar.
In Punjabi means family.
Yeah, to be read list. Yeah, so we are going to put all these books on that list right away.
Okay.
And all of you also do it. And if you have any more suggestions, leave them in the comments section. And of course, share this video as widely as possible.
Yes.
Recommend it to your friends who are readers and non-readers, because some of the books are very accessible.
Yeah.
All of
And
them are, in
subscribe. All of them are.
All of them are.
Even the 900-page one is.
It's just long.
Okay.
If you could read Game of Thrones, you can read this.
That is true.
That's a
That
great
is
argument.
true.
Do it,
I've been
guys.
shamed.
Yes.
And on that note,
Thank you. Bye-bye.
bye.